It's going. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our session today. We're just gonna give it another minute for everyone to kind of log in, but sit tight for a second and we'll get started. Thank you so much. Okay. Just expand this out. Looks like we're getting a nice group of people in now, so that's good. So we're into the hour now, so let's get started. And as people join, they'll just catch up. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining us today in our webinar, Keep A to B Hassle-Free. It's a customer roundtable on commuter city challenges. Really fun, kind of interesting topics to get through today. And I'm excited to have a couple guest speakers in our webinar today that'll help talk about their individual stories and kind of how solutions were derived in their respective regions. We'll talk a little bit about MyoVision, kind of what we do, what our mission is, really what a commuter city challenge looks like, and then we'll get right into that round table. All right, so today's speakers, so myself, Brent Rogerson, I'm a solutions engineer here at MyoVision. I've been with MyoVision for quite some time, about 13 years, helping our customers take advantage and use TrafficLink platform and take advantage of all the features that it provides. I also have Heidi joining here from town of Milton, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, Canada. She'll be telling us a little bit about her story, and Chris Kasani as well from city of Quincy, just outside of Boston. So really excited I get to work with both these individuals on a regular basis, and really excited about how our solution has been applied into their regions. Joining on the back end of the webinar is Robin, so I may ask him for help along the way. He's kind of managing our GoToMeeting today, so if I ask for him, you'll kind of know why. You'll be kind of watching out for the questions. I do have questions up so that if you want to kind of add or ask questions of our guest speakers today, feel free to do so in that chat box. Everyone can hear me okay? I see one question in the box that you can't hear us. I'll keep going. Is everyone able to hear? Chris, Heidi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Can hear you. Yep, absolutely fine.
Oh, okay, good. I see a couple comments in the chat box that not hearing me, but anyways, I'll keep going. So yes, with that in mind, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to provide comments, and we'll kind of address them on the way. We will have a little bit more time at the end to kind of open it up to the floor and see if we want to get into any specific topic. But anyways, so yeah, looking forward to that, and I'll give each of you a second to introduce yourself when we get to your part. But let me just get MyoVision out of the way, because we're not the spotlight here really. But anyways, who is MyoVision? We've talked a lot about this webinar, and we built a lot towards it, really talking about a very particular challenge in a commuter city type design. But MyoVision, who we are, we're a hardware and software developer. We build tools for transportation professionals. Heidi, maybe on mute. Sorry. Yeah, so we build transportation tools for traffic professionals, and that range from video detection at the intersection for actuation It's also around analytics at the intersection, like automated traffic signal performance measures, including signal monitoring and all the way into the safety applications, like pedestrian compliance and red light running. We have a lot of these different applications that can be applied at various types of cities and various types of problems. Today, we're really going to be focusing on one of the types of city challenges, or a very particular type of city called a commuter city design. A commuter city, if you're not familiar with the term, a commuter city is essentially a town or a city just outside of a major metropolitan area. And so what that would mean is that the population heavily is going to and from in the morning's peak. They would leave the city, and then at the end, they'd come back at the end of the day, creating this large population moving in and out of the city at two different times of the day. In a commuter city that's one version of a commuter city. You could also think about it like a pass-through city, where a lot of traffic comes through the city at very particular times of the day, getting to maybe a major economic center or a major metropolitan area like a greater Toronto area or a greater Boston area, like we're going to talk about today. But with these types of challenges, it brings a very consistent type of focus when it comes to data. When we're looking at this type of problem, it's really talking about how do you get individuals from A to B? Like how do you really focus on that problem and help measure it, address it, and help create throughput in a way that it creates a citizen impact. And that citizen impact is really what we're going for here. How do we apply these solutions in a way that you feel them as a driver every day, as a citizen going in and out of these cities? And that, to me, as a driver, would translate to my delay. How much time am I wasting at these intersections? How much money am I losing out on because I've been sitting here and I'm not able to do other things with my time, like go shopping or go to some of the local shops in the area and kind of just take advantage of the community I'm in because I'm really just commuting in and out. So that creates all these delays. But another major benefit that comes from improving this commuting type challenge is really how much fuel is being wasted in this type of congestion. There's a lot of cars trying to move together in platoons. They're trying to move to a destination. And if we can better service how little or how much they're stopping along the way and really helping them get through that network, we can really accelerate the efficiency and the focus on fuel consumption and ultimately greenhouse gases. So this is why we talk a lot about commuter city as a major challenge that these types of cities focus on. Is really there's an easily measurable way to create an impact and a great way to show how just solving minor delay problems or helping better with coordination or even applying more advanced solution like adaptive that I think Chris will talk a little bit about in a minute. But applying the right solutions from a data-driven approach to really create these outcomes for citizens allows you to translate that ROI, that return on your investment, into real impact around economic factors like delay and time wasted. So we're really excited to get into this type of challenge and show how our products really help address this problem, at least in a couple places. Right before I get to that, but how this can actually translate to a measurable outcome, and we may have seen this through things like the CMAQ calculators or congestion management and air quality type focuses that come from federal level governments. But when you look at this type of information, often we're thinking about how do you measure reduced congestion? How do you improve travel time? And then ultimately, how does that translate to emission savings over time? And generally, there's a lot more down that list. How do you really couple the problem of moving commuters through the city with the safety application? So how do you help people cross the road at the same time while trying to move people in and out of a city? So there's a lot of very complex challenges along the way when it comes to a commuter city. However, there are some really measurable impacts that you can derive out of that type of measurement with using automated traffic signal performance measures or the travel time, Wi-Fi travel time probes that our devices have that have been really taken advantage in both the scenarios that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to get, so enough really about kind of that intro part, and let's get kind of a little bit into more of the discussion. And this is where maybe I'll start with Heidi, and we'll get into kind of a little bit about your story. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, town of Milton, and kind of some of the challenges that you've seen and been able to resolve with our technology already.
Okay, thank you very much, Brent, for the introduction. So my name is Heidi Schlegel, and I am the manager of traffic at the town of Milton. And within my division, we look after traffic signals, transportation planning, street lighting, and traffic operations. And we've also got the crossing guards in our area. So Milton is approximately, 60 kilometers west of Toronto. We are considered a bedroom community. Very fast growing, one of the fastest growing municipalities in the GTA. Right now our population is about 115,000, and the projected population of our municipality is going to be over 200,000. So again, with growth comes traffic issues and traffic congestion, and that's how we kind of got introduced to MyoVision as a result of a number of complaints that we received with respect to congestion, poor signal timing in our municipality. Do you want to flip to the next slide? Or I don't know if, right. Okay, so I'll just give you a little bit of history of our issues. So down in our downtown core, which is Main Street, we have two very closely spaced signals, maybe a couple hundred meters apart, if that, and you couldn't get from point A to point B without being stopped at either one of the signals or both signals. So in the summer of 2017, we installed the Traffic Link, the SmartLink, SmartSense, SmartView equipment at these two intersections. We're Main Street and Martin Street, and Main Street and Commercial Street. And we let that run over the summer and did a lot of work with MyoVision. The staff at MyoVision was fantastic in supporting us through this whole process of testing out their equipment. And just to kind of back up a little bit, we have very limited staff. We only have 3 staff in traffic engineering at the town. At this time, we've got about 55 traffic signals within our municipality that are under our jurisdiction. So it seemed that we did the old-fashioned way of using Synchro to develop signal timings, and would do an 8-hour count in one day, use that data, and from there we would go and run it through Synchro and then develop our signal timing plans. And we all know, being in the traffic field, that traffic on a daily basis can change. We are fairly close to the Highway 401 corridor, and if there is a collision on the 401 or the 401 is shut down, traffic just filters onto our east-west, north-south arterial roads. So we had MyoVision equipment installed for the summer and into early 2018, and we found amazing information. Like, there was when this equipment was installed and there was some tweaking done, there was a 22% reduction in split failures that we found. There was a lot less queuing at intersections. The driver experience was very positive. Increased the mean speed through that corridor, and reduced the number of complaints. So I have to say, since we installed MyoVision at these two intersections, which was in 2017, we have maybe had 1 or 2 complaints from those two intersections, compared to almost daily complaints in the past. So that was one amazing experience we had. Very high volume location, and a lot of foot traffic there in the summer where we have our farmers market. So just as a result of those 2 intersections being done, council was extremely happy, and we have since added MyoVision to a number of our signalized intersections. We're out of 55 intersections right now, we've probably got about 45 that have MyoVision equipment installed at these intersections. And our policy now is, anytime a new set of signals goes in, we install all of the MyoVision equipment with it. And it makes life a lot easier for my staff, instead of having to always go out on site to look at intersections as people complain about them. We've been able to watch some videos and run a bunch of reports that are available through the MyoVision software. So that's really it for me. We're just extremely happy with the results of this technology, and we'll continue to equip every intersection we have with MyoVision. We're hoping by the end of 2022 that all of our intersections will be equipped with MyoVision equipment. Prior to MyoVision, we had no interconnect. We had nothing at all that enabled us to, look at anything without going out on site. So that's really my story.
Okay, great. That's a good overview. I have a couple questions for you that maybe actually I want to ask both of you. So what maybe I'll do is I'll give Chris maybe a little time to go through City of Quincy, kind of what your flavor on commuter cities are and how it kind of contrasts to what Heidi was talking a little bit about. And then I have a couple good questions I think that I would like to get your takes on at the end. So maybe we'll hand it over to Chris. Give us a little introduction of yourself, your role, and some of the challenges in your city.
Great. Thanks so much, Brent. Great job, Heidi. So my name is Chris Cassani, and I am the Director of Traffic, Parking, Alarm, and Lighting for the City of Quincy, Massachusetts. Quincy is just south of the city of Boston. We are a city of roughly 100,000 people, settled in the early 1600s, and some of the roads I think were laid out roughly at the same time. So we're faced with a rapidly intensifying kind of urban area, while also trying to deal with roads that were designed a long time ago. We also have a highway and I-93, which is a major thoroughfare here, and we have an MBTA red line that runs through our city. And as time has gone by, it's interesting to think of some of those benefits. Obviously, having subway lines and highways through your city, but the challenges that it creates in terms of mobility. So we have sort of all the challenges, you might say, of mobility and all the features of an urban area without being of the size of a Boston, for example. So I've been in my role a little, almost close to 4 years. And the reason that we started our relationship with MyoVision initially was that we really wanted to install an adaptive traffic signal platform in our city. So we are both a commuter city and also a destination city. We have a huge amount of traffic that travels from the South Shore, which is part of our metro region, into Boston, but a huge amount of traffic that also finds its final destination here in Quincy. And because of that, and our proximity to the highway and to the subway, there's a lot of action. And what we have found, before COVID, we sort of had that traditional AM rush. Middays were busy, and a PM rush without any doubt. During COVID and during these days now, where hopefully we're out of the woods here, we've noticed certainly differences in our traffic patterns. The bottom line is, though, we had a congestion issue that really we didn't feel could be solved via traditional coordination. A lot of intersections very, very tightly spaced together, a lot of strange geometry, a lot of restricted movements, you name it. And so we set off to try to identify an adaptive platform. And the adaptive platform that we have is SureTrack. And I think that might be on the next slide there, Brent. The platform could not exist. It could not exist without the MyoVision platform. And from the moment the first camera went in, I feel the same way that Heidi did. We realized the benefits of the platform immediately. But then I think the greatest benefit with MyoVision has just been the never-ending commitment by the MyoVision team to develop more functionality, to make the platform better, to make the analytics better. What it does in an adaptive environment, I would say, and I want to very specifically call this out, an adaptive network is using predictive analytics to make its decisions. And it's only as strong as the data going into the network. It can't make good decisions. It can't predict the future well if it isn't getting good information on the front end. And what we have noticed with MyoVision is that regardless of the weather conditions, regardless of the time of day, really regardless of any glare, you name it, snow, ice, etc. The platform performs extremely well, extremely reliably. And that is really the only way to have an adaptive system. What we have found, we've deployed some other products when we did the initial build out, and the rock solid, consistent performer here, without question, is the MyoVision platform, which is wonderful, obviously, to make the system work, but it really becomes incredibly important with all of the ATSPMs that MyoVision has developed to give us, I would say, a constant spate of report cards on how well the system is performing. So it enables us to detect things, it enables the system to work, but then it really enables us to say, are we doing what we believe we are doing? Are we performing as well as we think we are performing? And if we aren't, why? You know, what happened here? Why is it we're not seeing what we're seeing? Was it a preemption event? Was it a road construction? Whatever the case may be. In a city like ours, unfortunately, we don't always get a heads up that the utility company is going to be taking up a lane of traffic. They just sort of show up and tell us, sorry, can't help you. So MyoVision has given us a tremendous set of tools to be able to do all of the planning and reacting if we need to, but it has also made, as I said, our ability to predictively move traffic through the city better. So reducing congestion by 10 to 15% at a minimum is a huge win, certainly in the city of Quincy. We have greater improvements in off-peak hours, but again, the underlying performer here, the reason why the system exists in the first place is because of the MyoVision system. And what I have found and what I have been so delighted with over the years is working closely with the MyoVision team. You know, Brent and his team, Andrew Fonseca, a whole number of other folks at MyoVision have been wonderful and really have listened to the concepts that we thought might be important to help them make the platform a little bit stronger. And that type of sharing that we have, the type of mutual respect we have, I think has made our system better and really made us want to work more with MyoVision. So it's a really symbiotic relationship that has been just a huge, huge benefit. As Heidi had, indicated in Milton, the desire to outfit all of the intersections in the city with MyoVision, we certainly feel the same way. We've been able to deploy MyoVision where we had zero communication, where we had zero traffic detection hooked up, meaning zero handholds and the whole 9 yards. So MyoVision is, eminently deployable. Really, whatever your situation is, wherever it is deployable. You can run the Cat5 cable overhead if you need to. You can obviously do it underground. And then, of course, the remote monitoring capabilities and the remote changing capabilities were immensely, immensely helpful during the days of early COVID lockdowns. But really every day since the moment they went in has given us an ability to have a more reliable, functional, and technologically advanced system. So it's the workhorse of our system, and we're glad we have it.
That's great. Great summary, and thanks for all the great comments. I mean, we really enjoy working with all of our customers, and the relationship with both yourself and Heidi have been a great learning curve for us as well. This is why many of these types of sessions are not only valuable to our listeners that are trying to learn how to apply solutions to themselves into their own regions, but even helping MyoVision learn how to help solve those problems. What is the right technology is what we're looking for constantly as a developer. So really excited to
Brent, I forgot one thing I do want to mention too.
Sure.
Going back to the willingness on the MyoVision team to really work with new breakthroughs in technology, we've also run a pilot transit signal priorities program in Quincy. And obviously the MyoVision platform, especially the telemetry dashboard, enabling you to see exactly what is going on the road network if you have a vehicle putting in a call, whether it's a fire truck or a bus. Tremendously helpful to really understand, okay, how well is all this working? So I neglected to mention that sooner, but as we hopefully roll out more of these sort of technological breakthroughs, we know we have the right platform behind it to analyze how well it's working.
Yeah, that's great, and nice little segue to my first question, I guess. Um, Maybe I'll send this to Heidi first. Um, you kind of mentioned so you both mentioned something around kind of the local community. I think in Milton's case, you mentioned like there was a farmer's market alongside in areas where you have your commuter traffic and try to balance out both those types of scenarios. And obviously, there's pedestrians, bikes, cars, trucks, buses, emergency vehicles, like Chris mentioned. But Heidi, knowing you now have all of this data and knowing how you need to respond to the citizens, how do you balance out priorities and optimization? And how do you really address setting a balance of the intersection when you have both those competing type priorities?
Um, well, I guess we really do concentrate on our commuter traffic during like the AM and PM peak hours. As I indicated, we're kind of a bedroom community. We don't have a lot of traffic um, during rush hour, or sorry, during off-peak hours. You know, we have enough, but not as much as during the peak hours. And like one of our other major corridors we were having a lot of issues on was one of our north-south arterial roads that was close to the GO station, and we have a number of signals that are spaced very closely together, and that was another street that we got a lot of complaints about, especially during the AM and PM peak hour as people were trying to get to the GO station. So how do we balance that out? I think we do concentrate on the commuter traffic more than you know, traffic during the off-peak hours. And we've just spent a fair amount of time looking at reports and ensuring that, you know, we have that balance for the commuter traffic and the non-commuter traffic. And again, the roadway, Thompson Road, where the GO station is, was another street that we received numerous complaints on a daily basis about prior to MyoVision being installed, and the complaints have dropped right off. So that's kind of how we deal with it.
Oh, that's great. I guess
Not sure if that answered your question.
no, it's a great response. I mean, it is a complex scenario, especially when there's a lot of uh, competing people at the table for outcomes, and often targeting the most prevalent issue or the biggest issue that's actually causing people the most pain is kind of what I heard there, and it sounds like that was helping you resolve it. Maybe same
Yeah.
question to you, Chris. I know you have a slightly different scenario, but very similar in the same sense. Knowing that you have the level of the data that you have, how do you balance out some of these priorities?
Well, I think I'll sort of pick a specific example, Brent. I think with our pilot program with the MBTA, um, you know, one of the things is obviously buses tend to work on the main line, obviously. And in our case, we have Hancock Street, which runs north and south across the whole city. You know, it does have busy side streets that connect to it. You know, you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face. You don't want to create problems on side streets where none exist. So I would say both the data to understand when these priority requests are coming in is matched with split failures or with the video itself. And you're able to really piece together, I would say, the full picture to say, okay, the idea we had of making transit a priority is helping everybody on that main line get through because we're pulling together all of the cars that are in the same platoon as the bus. And we're confirming that through the video footage. Additionally, obviously, we're hoping that we are not negatively impacting the side seats traffic. So I think all the data we have tells us all of the inputs into the system. And then if we piece it all together, especially with the video feature, we can really say definitively, hey, look, this is worth it for sure. Not only is it worth it, this might also incentivize more people to jump on the bus, especially as we, you know, please God, return to normal in the not too distant future.
Oh, that's super interesting. A couple questions came in while you were talking about that as well for Heidi. Maybe I'll just serve them up because it feels like a very relevant question to what you're talking about there. So when you find the data and you're balancing out these priorities, when you find this information, you kind of made the comment like it's kind of like a no-brainer almost, where once you see it, it's easy to make an improvement. How easy in reality is it for you to see that data, make a business case? Do you actually have to make a business case, take that to the city, and then go deploy a solution? Or is it a little bit more complex to that? Like, are you able to create a business case first, or do you not even have to do that? Can you just create a solution and deploy the results right away? Maybe Chris, you can go first, and I'll ask Heidi the same question.
It's a great way to look at it, Brent. I would say, in our case, we've been given pretty broad latitude to certainly adjust timings and to introduce, new crossings where they may be needed, especially for pedestrians, or to add left turn cycles or whatever the case may be. I'd say we're budgeted to be able to handle some of those things directly. So, that broad latitude we've been given, we've tried not to abuse it, certainly. So it's been very helpful in that respect.
Well, that's great. Using data to make solutions sounds like the less in your way to make that solution, the better.
Well, yeah, to the extent that the data we get is so current, it's very helpful to make a determination. It's wonderful to get reports that are aggregating lots and lots of data. But if you have current data, constant data, if you have crash data, if you can see how a crash occurred and you say, geez, this is the geometry of the intersection at fault here, let's go for it. I think so that the tools are there to go to the other stakeholders to say, hey, look, we got to do something here. And certainly that really comes from all the features of the MyoVision platform.
That's great. Heidi, what's your take on that question? Is it a similar experience in your world?
Yeah, I pretty well echo what Chris says. Yeah, with all this data that we have, we can create a solution and deploy it right away without really going to anybody else. We do, again, have some money available if we need to, make some upgrades at some of the intersections by putting advanced greens or something in, changing signal timing for pedestrians. So yeah, we pretty well have control of the traffic situation in Milton, and very seldom ever report to council on what we're doing. If we get a request through a councillor, we do respond and let them know what we're implementing, but it's pretty well done right away.
That's great. Do you ever, with both those things in mind, with the reporting aspect, and not necessarily needing to report back to council necessarily, but do you ever create outcome reports? Like I think the one I'm kind of thinking about is like an easier one, like emissions reduction or time savings reduction. Do you ever create documentation like that and send it out to the public to show the impacts, or is the public ever asking for that kind of information? Maybe to Heidi first.
In Milton, no, the public doesn't ask for that information, but that is really a great idea. We're trying to use social media a lot to send out good news stories, especially about carbon emissions and everything. So yeah, you've kind of given me an idea. Thanks. But yeah, right now we don't do any of that. And it's just really staffing issues.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that was actually one of the questions that I saw come in the chat box, was to know more about municipalities, if the improved efficiencies that you're seeing are actually enabling those types of conversations with the public and maybe helping with, say, reallocation of road space away from vehicles back to vulnerable road users, and having data like this may help you respond to that group maybe.
Yeah, if I could add something there. One of the things that we're trying to look at, and I'm sure, I hope this wasn't the case in Milton or anywhere else, frankly, but it was certainly in Quincy. During COVID, despite the fact that we had fewer cars on the road and fewer people on the road, we had more pedestrian incidents and fatalities than we had the previous year, and I think statistically probably previous several years. And I mean, it was a national trend in the United States. It was, and it's horrifying. I mean, these are so avoidable, these tragedies. What I would say that we've used the MyoVision platform to do is to say, let's collect all of this data, the turning movement counts, et cetera. Let's cross-reference this with any incidents that do occur, and let's figure out, how can we identify a solution here that might work, or, let's hold people accountable for the actions that they committed. And again, the video feature there is obviously incredibly beneficial. So in terms of public safety, I mean, I think that that's how we've really used this in a big way. In addition to the ways that Heidi suggested there with relative to emissions reduction and so forth.
That's great. I mean, it's interesting. I know we've talked a little bit about the emissions part of improving commuter traffic. I mean, that's probably not necessarily even one of the top priorities on your list. I can imagine that safety is the number one always on the list and balancing out those vulnerable road users. Do you find that in either of your scenarios that balancing out that safety question about the vulnerable users, do you find that having the public aware of what you're doing helps accelerate your initiative towards things like Vision Zero, or are they almost just expecting that from you to kind of have that as your top priority?
Well, I've always said at public meetings and to members of the public, we try to strike the balance between convenience and safety. And unfortunately, a lot of times you ask the public, which one's more important, and they may often say convenience is more important. I think we see ourselves as the defender of the pedestrian in as much as the pedestrian doesn't have a normal constituency advocating for him or her. So very important coming from MyoVision to advocate for better pedestrian protection for sure.
That's great. Heidi, I guess same question to you. Do you feel like that's your mission to own, or do you feel like the public is really involved in the Vision Zero type perspective?
No, I think that's kind of, owned by us. We don't really, we right now are not kind of pushing Vision Zero. Everything we do, no matter, if it's signal related or, anything related to speeds and all-way stops and pavement markings, we always aim for Vision Zero. So I think that's just kind of expected. The public just kind of expects us to be working on that constantly, no matter what we do. To for both pedestrians and for vehicles.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's one of those assumed, one of those things that everyone assumes is the top priority, but it's always good to hear it.
Yeah,
that's great. With that in mind, so knowing that you're kind of going back a little bit to the commuter city concept, knowing that especially in a place like Milton, which is not the first or last city along the chain into a major city, into a major metropolitan area, do you collaborate with, say, neighboring communities within the Milton region or around Milton itself, just to figure out how does the solutions between yourself and the neighboring areas also help in the overall commuter kind of concept? Do you have that type of collaboration with the groups around you?
Yeah, in Milton, we have a Halton group, the Technical Traffic Working Committee. We meet 4 times a year, and yeah, we do often talk about just emerging issues in our municipalities, and we find that it's pretty well the same in all 4 municipalities that are within this region. And we have done presentations with respect to the results that we've seen from using MyoVision, and some of our surrounding municipalities have also tested out the MyoVision equipment as well, just based on success that we've had, and even further out municipalities as well that we communicate with respect to the satisfaction and the results that we get from having this equipment installed, and the reports and everything that's available to us that makes our jobs easier and pleases the public a lot more.
Yeah, it's always getting to that prove it question, and as soon as you can prove it, then everyone really seems to rally around it, I guess. And that's great to hear that the community around you is really involved as well and starting to take advantage of the same solutions. I guess, Chris, same question to you. I know there's a lot of neighboring towns and cities outside of Boston. How well, I think you mentioned the MBTA there a little bit, that's probably a good example of this. which just kind of got me thinking about it. But when it comes to actually deploying like detection technology and individual solutions like you've experienced, how much do you collaborate with the neighboring towns to see how they're trying to accomplish the same
Well,
things?
it's interesting. The traffic engineer for Quincy lives in Weymouth, and the traffic engineer for Weymouth lives in Quincy. You know, so we've been in a great position here, but we've gotten the investment in our department to be able to make some of these improvements. So we've you know, certainly not been shy, including being on this webinar today, to tell all of our neighboring communities about the benefits of these technologies. We are in a slightly unique position in comparison to some of them, some of our neighbors, in that the intersections we have in Quincy are our own. They're not under the state's jurisdiction. So there's certainly some collaboration there. I mean, I think the collaboration through the T, and Jay Jackson may be on here, but you know, Jay is a visionary, really, to try and drive some of those partnerships between different communities and different agencies. And I would just add too, you know, going back to sort of why MyoVision, why choose MyoVision, you know, the ability to be able to be positioned well for the future of connected vehicles, I think, is incredibly important, and certainly something that MyoVision is really working hard at. So you look at all of that. How do you collaborate between communities? Well, if the driver demands that there's some benefit to participating in some platform, right? You have to be in position to do that. And I think we feel that way very strongly here through the MyoVision platform, that, you know, if MyoVision's the iPhone of the intersection, that we have the latest and greatest iPhone version, which is really exciting.
That's great. Yeah, it's great reference too. That's exactly what we're going for. Actually, so what both you said kind of builds me to one of the questions that we got from the audience here. What advice would you have for some of these neighboring towns, or even in cities that have very similar challenges to yours? How would you, and we kind of circled around this a little bit, but maybe a little bit more direct to the question, how do you present this maybe to your city council, or what advice would you give other communities on how to present a solution like this to the city council to create a widespread rollout of this in a city, knowing that budgets are tough? Showing this ROI is nice, like in a slide deck that we've shown here in a presentation like this, but how do you actually take that internally within your respective communities? How do you actually bring that business case to the community? Say, I want to spend money on this. How did that look for you, Heidi? And maybe I'll ask the same question to Chris in a second.
Funny you asked that question, because I get asked that a lot, and it was for some reason very simple in Milton. As I indicated, we did the pilot at those two intersections in 2017 in the summer, and it was February 2018 that I took a report to council after we, you know, had the MyoVision stuff running for the entire summer, fall, and early 2018, and just threw them a bunch of data, and you know how successful this was, how the number of complaints were reduced, and they were really impressed. And I have to thank the people at MyoVision who helped with a bunch of graphics and everything for me, and helping me interpretate the reports and everything. And yeah, we sent a report to council, and they were just thrilled. We did a little presentation with our findings, and they, you know, said, sure, let's go ahead and do this, because the councillors were also receiving a number of complaints along this corridor, and even some of the councillors were people that were getting stuck through these two intersections. And along with the intersection, or the roadway down by the GO station, there were a number of councillors that use that road on a daily basis, and they were complaining to me as well. So they were, you know, extremely happy with the results of this pilot, and they allowed us to just continue on. And you know, every year I get money to continue to equip 5 or 6 intersections with the MyoVision equipment. So I guess I'm lucky. It was really easy for me.
Yeah, it does sound like a lot of it was results driven. To keep showing that improvement.
Yeah, exactly. We had results to show them, and you know, to get that information was very easy. And they even noticed the number of complaints they were getting dropped off the board too. So yeah, they were very happy.
it's always good when everyone's starting to feel the positive impacts of that. When lists of problems slowly get smaller, that's always a good gauge.
Yeah, and even to date, like as we, sorry, Brett, even to date, as we roll out to for, more and more intersections, like the councilors, they're getting so few complaints about any signal issues compared to what they had before. So they're happy with that.
I have a kind of a slight, just curious comment, like kind of on your point there. And do you think just traffic with COVID being reduced has helped generally temporarily, but it's almost like there's a pent-up demand that's about to almost kind of flood the network once hopefully like COVID leaves us soon here and things do go back to normal. Are you anticipating kind of that uh, volume to return, or has it never really left in your region, and you just constantly see the value along the way because that volume of cars haven't really changed during this time?
Well, in Milton, we've really noticed a decrease in traffic, especially during the peak hours, especially around the GO station. I mean, you can find so many empty spots in the GO station now compared to before where there was nothing at all. So, I mean, we continue to keep an eye on it and, get the odd request here and there, but I'm hoping that when things do go back to normal, that, we're in good shape.
Yeah, for sure. And preparing for that seems to be what you're working on, and that's really
Yeah.
exciting.
What we've noted, Brent, in Quincy, I mean, there are periods of time on a Saturday, right now and recently through COVID, where the midday peak on a Saturday is busier than the PM or AM peak pre-COVID on a weekday. So the patterns they've definitely changed. I mean, the AM rush isn't what it used to be. The PM rush, though, is very, very intense, but maybe not lasting as long. And I think the Wall Street Journal actually had an article to that effect recently. So it certainly, and the MyoVision tool is obviously wonderful to be able to define all of that. I would just say, though, in terms of presenting it to stakeholders, what we've found successful is, look, you're future-proofing your investment, but also, by the way, you may think that you may not realize how complicated it is. How about that? The traffic cabinet that you see on the street is like $100,000 IT closet. And when you frame it that way, it's like, it is? Yeah, no, it is. There's a lot of very important, very powerful computer equipment in there. And obviously, the more you take it down the road with adaptive and everything else, the more sophisticated it is. And if you want it to be better and you want it to grow with you, especially in our case where we aren't necessarily building out new roadways, but we're introducing more volume, you need to take care of that infrastructure, and you can't let it go by. But we're at a great position. We're in a great position now because the technology has come out, whereas 10 years ago, if you installed cameras, you might have thought, well, we're really cool, we're ahead of the game. Well, in reality, you were installing loops in the sky. It's like, no, we've gone way past that now. We're way past that. So demonstrating that value sometimes requires a little bit of education, but it's really easy to do because you can go before a city council and show them live detection being done through the platform. So I think it really helps be like self-reinforcing.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say your experience was very similar to Heidi's in the fact that you're just able to kind of show that value over time to the city, and then because of that, you kind of get the autonomy just to keep going and keep building and keep getting to that future-proof scenario that you're looking for? Oh, Chris, did you hear me?
I thought I'm sorry.
Sorry, that was just a quick question over to you, Chris.
I'm sorry. I thought you said to Heidi.
Sorry, yeah, no, my mic's I think cutting out a little bit here. Sorry for that. Yeah, just over to you, Chris. I guess similar question that I did ask Heidi about just how you've presented this over time to I guess your stakeholders, and how do you really like use that? Do you really just use that continuous value stream to keep getting the acceleration from your stakeholders? Is that kind
Absolutely.
of your method?
Well, I think that there's nothing better to bringing someone over to a traffic cabinet and trying to show them what's going on if they're unfamiliar is not really a recipe for success. But showing someone, the mayor or city councilors or really anybody, here is how this is being done. And by the way, this is how we can address some of these issues in the middle of the night or whatever the case may be remotely. I think it's just invaluable. So really the back end platform um, being so user friendly and so mobile makes presenting and requesting and so forth just a much easier proposition.
Yeah, for sure. And I really like the comment you made about future proofing in the in those in the traffic cabinet. Like you said, there's a lot of different technologies in there that needs to really integrate together. And this is, I mean, maybe a selfish MyoVision plug in here right now, but that's why we often think about the iPhone model, right? That's often why we think about how do you create a technology at an intersection that has that future-proof capability that you can keep evolving with, keep adding technology to, in a way that you'll somewhat consolidate the risk in that cabinet, because like you said, there's a lot of things going on in there that also takes a lot of investment and time to maintain. But if you can almost simplify that down a little bit, increase the resiliency and the longevity of what's at the roadside in terms of horsepower of data information, you can really get a longer tail ROI out of the overall system that you can consistently present back to city without have to really kind of go to the table and ask for more necessary traffic equipment to get the data. You almost just get the data by default now.
Certainly.
Oh, so this was great. I am kind of running out of questions here. You guys, you're amazing. This is a really fun conversation about different flavors of a very similar problem. Um, if you had one last statement to give to our audience before you go about commuter city challenges or just how you've taken advantage of the tools, what would you leave our audience with? And maybe I'll start with Heidi first.
I would just say give it a try. We were extremely happy with it, and I mean, lots of support from MyoVision whenever you need it. And yeah, just give it a try, and I'm sure you'll be happy with the results.
That's great. Yeah, I would second that. Chris, what's
Yeah, and
your
I just think big because especially if you're in an area like Milton is to Toronto or Quincy is to Boston, the demands that are going to be placed on your transportation network are going to be really very real and very intense. And if you're a place like Quincy and a lot of the northeast region of the United States, again, you're not going to build another road. You're not going to build new lines of the subway system, certainly not quickly. So think big on the technological front because, we haven't even maybe discovered what the tool will be to unwrap some additional efficiencies, but you'll be able to do it because you've made the investment.
That's great. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Often when we're even on the MyoVision side, we're really thinking about like data is easy for us. We love creating data. We can generate data, but now the question is, how do we connect these intersections? How do we get more data flowing, and how do we really help cities take advantage of that power? And it does take some ROI representation and really enthusiastic individuals like yourself that really see that value, and you're obviously here helping us tell the story today because you've been able to experience that yourself, and I really like the messages that you provided today. So that's great. Thank you so much. We have about 5 minutes left here, and I wanted to see if there was any more questions from the audience. We have heard from a few already, which was really good, and really excited to see some of those interactions. But maybe we'll hang on the line for a few more minutes, see if there's any other questions from the audience. And I'll see if there's any coming in here. Here it is. So we covered that one. I'd like to know more about developed business cases. Oh yeah, we talked about a lot about the business cases of just how to present value how to do remote work ongoing. So I think we covered all of these questions in here. All right, well, I don't see any more questions coming in. So unless maybe if there's no other topics, maybe you, Chris or Heidi, want to cover at the end here, maybe we can just wrap it up here and go about our days.
Thanks a lot. No, that sounds great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.
Awesome, and thank you so much for your time and sharing your story with us. This was great, and we always appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to the audience for sticking with us, listening through, and providing some great questions. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Bye.